All right, welcome back. Well, over a century ago, this Battle of Gallipoli happened. It's still very important to many people, Australians and New Zealanders alike. And in April, they gather to remember this tragedy with very big events. Over 500,000 people died during this. And I guess when they gather together, they're really hoping and praying for the end of these senseless conflicts, or at least conflicts where so many people die. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case, especially with the Ukrainian war happening right now.
So World War I ended more than a century ago, right? It's been a long time. But the historians say that the events of that war still have a big effect on modern current events. What do you think? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, so although there were a lot of conflicts before World War I think World War I was a huge turning point for the mindset of the world. Before World War I, a lot of places, localities, countries, and areas were very focused on their internal balance of power. And it was all about balancing that power between whichever nations are around you, and also balancing the power within your nation. And suddenly World War I happens where the ideals went from balance of power and kind of got transferred to this idealized strength and power. So who's right, who's wrong? Not what is the balance of power, who's right and who's wrong. And I think that kind of started it, and World War II solidified that sort of idea of that. And we see that nowadays. I mean, what's the war on terror besides, we think we're right, they're wrong, and we have to protect the world from these terrible sort of terrorists in the areas, At least that was the idea. Or, there's even the conflict in Ukraine nowadays. It's all about Russia, wanting to have some of that sort of previous land that they used to have, and the world saying this is wrong now. It's not about balance of power. It's about who's right and who's wrong.
Oh, well stated. Okay.
Yeah, and kind of going off of that, a lot of things were happening in, of course, the Western area, like in Europe, during World War I, World War II as well. What was kind of happening in East Asia during that time, that same, early 20th century time period?
Yeah, I mean, you could kind of think of it as the colonial European powers that were, mucking around in Asia. They were a little bit distracted with the war in Europe. So you saw the Qing dynasty finally fell. They had been revolting, fighting Germany, the British, for years. The Qing dynasty finally fell, 1914, so you have a people's revolution. Not the communist one, just the regular people's one.
The regular people.
So the fall of the Qing, there was a kind of a domino effect. So then they lost Mongolia. Mongolia became independent. They became an independent country, and then would fall under influence of Russia. So that war bled over as well.
Wow. So there's a lot of stuff happening back there. Yeah.
And of course, the Japanese occupation of Korea was in full swing. And people here were also forming movements against that.
Yeah. There's huge formations around the whole world during that time. I absolutely agree.
Yeah. So that was East Asia in a nutshell. 1914, 1919.
Oh, that was a large nutshell. That's a full nut meal.
Yeah, Brazil nutshell.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They're bigger.
Those things are so hard to crack open too. Yeah. So I guess for you guys, how has the sort of history of war, especially World War I, how has it affected you these days? And do you think it still affects you, if at all? Well, that's going through all of the Anzacs Honored article. Let's go ahead and take a deeper look at those vocabulary words, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Storm.
Storm.
Pilgrimage.
Pilgrimage.
Esprit de corps.
Esprit de corps.
Pay tribute to somebody.
Pay tribute to somebody.
Scourge.
Scourge.